Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast. So this is a lead-in to this episode, which has already caught, during the early promos, a lot of comments and emails. So stay tuned, make your own opinion, and then at the end of this, we're going to do a recap of what we think, from our point of view, our opinion is how this should have been handled. Welcome to the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and my guest today, Jerry Everett. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Very good.
Good. So before we kind of get into what we're going to talk about, have you ever seen an episode of the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast?
No, I have not.
That's okay. Some haven't, and you may not be totally missing out. So part of the essence of our podcast is we like to know, we're going to talk Masonry, right? But we like to know as much about the man as we do the Mason. So push all your Masonry beside, because once I read your bio, they're going to understand why I say awe. Tell us who Jerry the man is. Fire away, my friend. I'll sit back and let you talk about just you.
Okay. I've been married twice. I have 2 kids with the first marriage, and ultimately I have 5 grandchildren, one on the way. And I raised both of my kids. At some point in time, we decided that we were better single parents than we were parents together.
Sure.
And so we split and went our own separate directions. And I said, that's fine, but I want to be the parenting parent. I have a number of things that I'm involved in. I'm a 50-plus year member of the National Ski Patrol. I officiate high school football, high school baseball. I'm just active in a million different things. And which, to some degree, that's bad.
Sure.
Because I didn't get to watch all of my sons and daughters' soccer games, but I'm kind of making up for that now and watching as many grandkids' soccer games as I can.
Sure.
So, but I have a degree in manufacturing / industrial engineering, master's in engineering administration. I worked until 2024, at which time I decided that it was time for me to retire. I have continued to work since then. I work part-time at the D Event Center at Weber State University, ushering, taking tickets. This next coming weekend, I'm going to be part of the officiating crew that will handle the Weber State College graduation. So I do that. Since the events that we're going to talk about, I'm now 2 days a week working as a volunteer at Shriners Hospitals for Children. I was there yesterday. They had a big spring fling kind of thing, and I had facilitated getting Peeps for all the kids, and so that was kind of fun.
Peeps, the little sugary like bunny things that are just
the ones that everybody says are so terrible.
As soon as you take a bite, you have diabetes. Yeah,
the spongy marshmallow things. I like them myself, but many people don't. But anyway, so I'm about ready to wrap up season number 53 with the National Ski Patrol, getting my doctorate. I'm looking at George Washington University.
Yep.
Might be a little more spendy than I really want to do, but I'm going to find something, and I'm going to get my doctorate eventually.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, says, "Well, you're finished working. Why would you want a doctorate?"
You're never finished working.
I said, "So y'all get to call me Dr. J."
I love it.
So
that's funny. I like it. I see what you did there. So if those are our listeners has picked up, he obviously likes to be busy, right? So
Absolutely.
normally we have our guests kind of give their Masonic bio. I'm going to go through this because it is literally 4 pages printed. So I'm going to go over the highlights before we jump into the conversation. So he's been master of 3 different lodges in Utah: number 29, number 205, and number 5. Been a lodge secretary. In addition to working his way up, he was the Grand Master of Utah in 2015. Um, he was on the Conference of Grand Masters. He served as the chairman of the Conference of Grand Masters of North America in 2015. He was elected in 2014. So those who know, we talk about the Conference of Grand Masters of North America on this podcast often. Member of the Scottish Rite, member of the Royal Order of Scotland, member of the York Rite, the Grand York Rite of Utah, the Grand Commandery of Utah, the Grand Encampment of North America, the Knight York Cross of Honor, the York Rite Sovereign College, the Mark Master Lodge number 00 of Utah. He was the potentate of Alcala. Alcala? Alcala, okay. It'll be across the screen for everyone to see. Served as treasurer trustee, or as he worked his way up to be potentate in 1992. Royal Order of Jesters member, International Order of the Demolay Master Counselor all the way back in 1969. Worked his way up a Southern California League dad, and elected to as the deputy of the Supreme Council of the Order in 2018. Works with the International Orders of the Job's Daughters, recipient of the Key of Excellence in 2003. That, my friend, is a Masonic bio. You have, if you go back to Demolay, you have been involved in some form of masonry since 1969. Fair?
That's correct.
Crazy. So let's push this all to the side. This is why our listeners are here. So let's talk about this. This, although public, not super public. You can see it on Reddit. You can see it with Chris Hoddip, who does Freemasons for Dummies. And what came across was a letter. All we saw was a letter dated February 10th of 2025 from your Grand Lodge. Basically, I'm going to read it, and then we'll talk about kind of how you think we got there. So this letter that says, Jerry, past Grand Master, was found guilty during a trial held in his lodge and expelled. Most Worshipful Jerry immediately appealed the decision to the Grand Master, and the appeal was referred to the Grievance and Appeals Committee of the Grand Lodge. At the 153rd Annual Communication of the Grand Lodge, the chairman of the Grievance and Appeals Committee presented the charges, the verdict, and the results of their own investigation. The Grand Lodge voted, their words, overwhelmingly to uphold the decision of the Grand Lodge Trial Commission. Therefore, Most Worshipful Jerry has been expelled from Freemasonry and no longer entitled to the rights and privileges of a Master Mason. You've seen the letter, obviously. That's kind of what triggered everything. So hearing it, reading it is one thing. When you hear it said, my first question is, what's it feel like just hearing it? Does it spark up some old wounds?
It's very, very painful. It's very, very painful. I mean, all of this started in our Grand Lodge communication in 2024. And unbeknownst to me, and I went to the Conference of Grand Masters 2024, and again, nothing was said to me, nothing was uttered in any way, shape, or form. I got home and that February, I got a copy of the charges and I went, what in the world is this? I have no idea. I had no idea that anything was happening. Now, I will tell you right straight up front that I don't have a very good filter. If I see a picture of somebody on Facebook and they're sticking their tongue out at the world, I usually say something really stupid like, if you're doing that, then you must be planning to share it. And unbeknownst to me, that was a communication to an individual who was a girlfriend of one of our Grand Lodge officers. Nobody ever bothered to come to me and say, oh, by the way, did you know? Because I didn't. Somebody said to me,
nobody whispered timely counsel.
Absolutely not. No whisper, no scream, no utterance in any way, shape, or form. And during the trial, I said, first of all, nobody uttered anything, and I said, I did not know that this was somebody's girlfriend. I guess I should have known she was somebody's girlfriend, but I didn't know that it was anybody within our fraternity. And they said, well, didn't you notice that one of her friends was so and so and so and so? And I said, well, to be honest with you, no, I didn't. I use Facebook to connect with family members in Michigan and Tennessee, and here in Utah, and in California. I use Facebook as entertainment. I have worked very diligently to make sure that prior to this, that I don't utter anything Masonic in my Facebook post. I might have said something since then.
So, I've got information you just sent over with this kind of the trial, and I'll highlight some different things. And what do you think, before we kind of go into that, what do you think, what do you think, why do you think maybe there wasn't timely counsel? Why do you think that you were somewhat, what I'd use the word, this is not your word, my words, blindsided, and why do you think it escalated so quickly before I kind of read what you sent over to me?
Well, I'm very vocal. Nobody in the Grand Lodge of Utah wonders where Jerry Everett is on a particular issue, whether it be the operation of a building, whether it be Shriners Hospitals for Children, whatever the case may be. Nobody is, there are no secrets. And I don't stand back and just let everybody else yak. I step right up and at Grand Lodge, even though we may have had a proposal to increase the per capita, I stand up and say to the body, I don't think there's a reason. I mean, we just changed the per capita. You just got $5. Why do you want another $5? And so I'm very vocal about that kind of stuff.
Is it to be vocal? Is it to challenge the system, or is it just to get your point of view? So for example, I say it this way. Sometimes I'm vocal just to challenge the status quo. Even if everything's going well, I'll challenge it because you want to keep it moving. So do you understand kind of what I'm asking? Like sometimes do you do it to challenge the system?
I think I may do that, but I
certainly do. So yeah,
if I stand up on an issue, I stand up on that issue because I don't believe that what the Grand Lodge is attempting to do is right for all of the members. I mean, I've been involved in those conversations about raising per capita and raising dues and yada, 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 yada.
So why do you think that you got kind of caught off guard? Push that to the side. Why do you think nobody kind of give you a heads up that, man, you're about, this is going on in your lodge? the master's going to sign this, the secretary's going to stamp it, and why do you think that it happened so like with you being blindsided, so to speak?
Well, I think that because I am as bold as I am, and I am who I am, I think that um, as a matter of fact, I'll use a term that a friend of mine used just within the last week. He said, "You know, you were a scapegoat," and I went, "What?" I said, "You're not even involved in a fraternity, and you're saying what?" Yeah, you were a scapegoat. And this individual said they tried to use me as part of the scapegoat. And when they came to me, I went, "What? I don't want any part of this. Y'all need to go away." Jerry Everett is my friend. Jerry Everett reached out to me and tried to help me as I was going through some difficulties in my life, and he was never anything more than a friend. And so, but this individual who is really not Masonically connected specifically said, "Well, you know, you were a scapegoat." I said, "Really?"
For what purpose would you think, though?
Well,
Just
I
to get
think
out, the loudmouth.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Get the guy that's vocal, get him out of the organization, get him away. Just yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm looking at your summons of notice of trial that ran through your lodge. So when you got that, was that the first you knew, or did you hear some rumblings that, oh crap, here it's coming? How did that all come about? Because this document is dated March 22 of 2024, a little over a year ago. So did you just get it like, oh crap, or did you have like a week's head note up, like, oh, I'm about to get something? How did that play out?
After we returned from the Conference of Grand Masters, and I went to the Conference of Grand Masters because a very, very close friend of mine, a vendor that I have used forever, Symbol Arts, um, he was going to be a vendor at the Conference of Grand Masters, and he asked me if I would come and give him some help, and I said, "Yes, I will." And when we got home from that, I got a directive from the Grand Master that said, there will be no communication between you and uh, 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 Worshipful Brother Joey Sanders, and there will also be no communication between you and his girlfriend. And I
Okay.
went, okay. So at that point in
How'd you
time,
get
I
that?
knew
Was it
something.
an email? Was it mail? Was it a phone call?
It was an email and a directive from the Grand Master.
Okay. And did you pick up the phone and
And
call
I
and
was
say, "What's up?"
no, I didn't, because I figured, he put his words and music in that email, and I said, okay. Um, but so therefore, I did nothing but comply. But in complying, um, I didn't have an opportunity to call Worship Brother Sanders and say, "I'm not sure what I did, brother, but I'm sorry, uh, because I was told not to communicate." And so I did not communicate. And so a little bit of the issue, a little bit of and in that email from the Grand Master, he also said, "And I understand that charges are coming." And I went, charges for what? I don't get it. I don't understand. And then I sat back and waited, and then they came.
About what was that timeline? A week, a day, a month?
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
2, 3 weeks? Okay. Okay. So
I probably could better communicate it to you in hours of sleep loss,
Oh yeah, that's
because
yeah.
I didn't sleep for 4, 5, 6 weeks with all of this coming. And then of course when I got them, then the first thing I did was I sat down and tried to answer them, at least wise in my own brain, and try to figure out kind of who. I have a background in quality, and I'm an
Right.
engineer, and so I
Right.
have an engineer
There's
brain,
yep.
and so therefore,
You're trying to work the
in
flow chart. Like, how did it get there?
yeah, and in the quality scheme of things, we look at who, what, when, where, how, why.
Right.
And that's exactly the document. And I didn't send that one to you, but I can. But that's the document basically that I created: who, what, when, where, how, why. And and then I sat down with a couple of very close brothers of mine, and I said, I I need your help. I'm I'm appalled. I have no idea what's going on.
So let's fast forward. So you get the charges, and then you get to you submit a response, right, before the trial, or do you not submit a
Yeah,
response? Do you talk to anybody from jurisprudence? Is there some sort of settlement, some
yes.
sort of deal you're trying to work ahead of time? This is for our listeners that don't know how Masonic trials work.
None of that happened. None of that happened. It went right straight from there to um, literally charge one. Did you? No. Charge two. Did you? No. Charge three. Did you? No. And so therefore, I did not even submit this, what I call epistle. I just simply answered the charges as they were presented to me. And then at that point in time, I said to the worshipful master, I said, um, so I assume you're going to tell me who my Gateway Lodge counsel is, my defense. And he ultimately did that. He signed two individuals that have less than 5 years of Freemasonry. They had never read the Grand Lodge code, more or less the trial code. And but I got to tell you that those two young men were absolutely stellar. They came here, they met with me. Um, I also have a brother who is a member of my lodge in Corinne. He is an attorney, but he is not a trial attorney. He's a wills
Estates and
and
wills,
trust
and yeah,
attorney.
yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep. So he really had no trial experience, but begrudgingly he said, "Yes, Jerry, I will help you. We have been close. We have been good friends. You have helped me through a lot of difficult times, and so therefore, yes, I will step up and I will help you." And that's exactly what he did. And so I ended up with one of the two young men from Gateway, because one of them was off on an extended trip with his wife to see her parents, and then I had Brian, who was also part of my defense team, and we did mock trial before the thing started, and then we ultimately showed up that uh, very 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 long Saturday morning and went through the process.
So
And we're talking about 12 hours.
so after you go through that, obviously the verdict's not issued right there. It's sent up, or did they issue the verdict right there?
No, the as a matter of fact, they discussed this on that Saturday, and then the trial commission met on Monday because we lasted so long on Saturday that they met on Monday to rediscuss everything. I didn't really agree with that, but on the other hand, they didn't invite us to come back in case there were other questions. And so they did their thing that Monday, and then according to the Grand Lodge Code, the charges and the verdict is read at the next regular meeting. Well, we're in July, and so we have to wait until September before we hear anything. And so they read the charges in September.
Yeah, move forward a little bit so I can make sure I pick you up on your mic. But yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So because you had a little bit of, a lot of places go dark in the summertime, so that's why there was some sort of a delay.
Exactly.
So of the charges that came across, did you emphatically disagree with all of them, any of them, some of them, none of them?
Well, I emphatically disagreed with all of them. And I say that because there was a statement made by the previous Grand Master's lady when they had come to Corinne for a festive board. And one of the other brothers from Corinne, Steve Peterson, and I walked around and we all said to the people that were there, you're here in Corinne. If you'd like to see a tour of the building, please let us know. And
Corinne is what? Tell everybody what Corinne is.
Corinne is a lodge in northern Utah.
Gotcha.
We have 3 lodges in northern Utah: Corinne, Amity, and Harmony.
And Corinne is lodge number 5.
Corinne is lodge number 5.
Gotcha.
One of the oldest lodges in the state.
So let me go through, if you don't mind. I want to highlight the notice, the summons of notice of trial, and some of the evidence. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So the notice of trial, as everyone knows, as I mentioned earlier, March 22nd, 2024. Pretty basic. It says, most worshipful of lodge, you're hereby summoned to appear on 18 May 2024 at 9 o'clock, signed by the master and the secretary. Charges are right after that. So here are, I'm going to highlight, this is a long document, and English is my first language, but you would think it was my third. So, worshipful master, So, Brother Gerald Everett, past Grand Master, charged with the following Masonic offenses. Number 1, violations of his obligations as a Mason. Number 2, acts of moral turpitude. And number 3, impairing the reputation of the fraternity before the world. So those were the 3 charges. Here are the details. Allegation 1 says that Brother Jerry, on 10 January 2024, on or about 6:30, sent unsolicited messages via Facebook Messenger to a lady. The initial message read, quote, "I want some of that," to which respondent responded with a question mark. The charges continue to say that Most Worshipful Everett then replied with, quote, your tongue sticking out, ha. Then again, quote, "Sorry, I could not help but notice, yummy," close quote. Sound about right so far?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Then another allegation allegedly happened on 2 February of 2024 is when, make sure I'm saying this right. Same lady, uninvitingly grabbed her arm, followed by rubbing her arm by asking how she was doing. The person said this was an invasion of personal space and uninvited contact, to find her in a state of, quote, paralyzing anxiety with tears in my eyes. So, allegation 3, on 3 February 2024, approached same person and worshipful brother person while in the temple, positioning himself between the two, basically saying, making direct eye contact. And then the allegations were that you said to the lady, "Are you ready to get off this roller coaster ride?" Close quote. Most worshipful Everett seemed to be waiting for a response. After no response from lady, she then made a comment that he then made a comment to the ladies in the room about making flowers and then left the room. Once he left, they observed lingering around the entrance of the lounge for a short while. The exchange was perceived as inappropriate. The quote roller coaster ride was interpreted as the relationship between the worshipful brother and the lady. And this goes with all of which the acts of the said brother were and are in violation of his obligations, duties of Mason, and constitute an offense under the Masonic Code of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons in said state. You've seen all that?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Right. It's rhetorical because, I mean, I know you have, because you sent them to me. And I'm looking at letters that basically, these are letters from the accusers that basically brought all of this up. So I want to kind of go back. So just want to walk you through. So this is, as this came across, I knew nothing other than, we had a past grandmaster get bounced. That's all I know, right? And so we start to go through this, and I look at, I could probably debate if it falls under a certain code, if it does or does not. So, I see different things, and here's all of the things. I'm not discounting anything anybody says, right? This is not victim shaming. This is not bashing Jerry. This is none of this. This is from an outsider's perspective. If came up and sat down, rubbed her arm, and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" There has to be something else in my brain that would paralyze somebody with anxiety and fear. But my point is this. So when that occurred on 3 February, if you came up and sat next to my wife and you rubbed her arm, touched her arm, rubbed her arm, whatever, and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And she felt some sort of a way, and she came and told me, right? I'm making a beeline over to you. Come with me. We're gonna have a quick conversation, right? And say, "Hey, she felt some sort of a way. I don't know what the deal is, but you need to cut that shit out." I mean, that would be me. That's how I would approach it instantly. I don't need charges because I'm gonna talk to you like a dude, right? That's me. That's me.
Mason to Mason.
Push that to the side, man to man. You know what I mean?
Man to man, brother to brother.
And it would be, if my wife felt, in quote, paralyzed with anger and tears in her eyes, and I see that, you better believe I'm having that conversation, right? That didn't happen. So again, not victim shaming, but if that would have happened to me, I'd have been all up in your ass, right? And that's what you do. And you would do the same thing to me when you were married. If I made your wife some sort of way, so that, and then the whole roller coaster ride. Again, there was another opportunity, allegedly, that if she felt some sort of a way, that brother should have came over and said, "Come here, let's have this conversation," right? That's me. And those are, because there's some things that are like, could something have been misinterpreted? But I would definitely have, I'll use the word accosted you. I would have accosted you and had that conversation, because that's what you do.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Here's the one that I'm a little like, this is the one I thought when I read it, I thought, man, this is probably the one that got you. And it's the text or the messenger. I call it text. I'm old. It's messenger. So from what it says, you sent over. I don't know what triggered it. Is this the photo with the sticking the tongue out thing that you kind of talked about?
Yes,
So,
that's yeah. And if you look at Facebook, there is a line of individuals and it says people you might know.
oh yeah.
And you scroll through those and you can pick any one or multiples and you can send them a message. Hi, how are you? How's your day? Da, 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 whatever.
Oh, so this was a profile picture with a tongue sticking out
Yes,
of
that's
somebody you
exactly what
might
it was.
know.
Somebody that I might know.
Okay. Anybody that's been on Facebook, they know what we're talking about. So that puts that in context. So you see this deal come across. Young lady, I don't know if she's young or old. Young lady sticking her tongue out, which you sent a message over that said, quote, I want some of that. Close quote. That was the allegation. Okay.
Right.
To which she responded back with a question mark. And then you responded to your tongue sticking out. Haha. Then, sorry, I couldn't help but notice. Yummy. Now, your contention, if they think if I understand, you had no idea who this person was.
I had no clue.
So, yeah, so when that happened, obviously this person probably knew who you were because of who she is. And most people know past grandmasters. They just know who past grandmasters are. So, did she, to your knowledge, reach out to her spouse, significant other, boyfriend, and say, I got this? Sounds like that happened because how else would they know about this? And then by the way, these are all the same people. So let me ask you this. So that allegedly happened on the 10th of January. Then allegedly you saw her on 3 February. Ask how she was doing. Did you put two and two together then?
No, sir. I had no clue.
Oh, it still didn't register to you. Okay.
It still did not register. This individual is a hairdresser, and so therefore, if you've seen her 10 times, you've probably seen her in 10 different colors.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I,
No,
but I had
makes sense.
and I was never introduced to her as, oh, by the way, this is Brother B's
Yeah,
girlfriend. I had no idea who she was.
yeah, yeah. So you're looking at all of that. I think of all of them. That's the one because they put it as number one charge. So I think that's the one that they're like, that's the one when you read it, you're like, when I first read it without understanding this context, I said, in my mind, I said, Jerry, what are you doing, dude? That was my first reaction. Like, what in the hell are you doing? Now, after hearing the context, I say that with a slightly different tone. What in the world are you doing? You don't know this girl. What are you telling her she's yummy for, man? So, listen, that's dude to dudes. But, it's just kind of a different. Social media is so weird. Social media, I've always said, will be the detriment to Masonry in some form or fashion, whether somebody talks about our secrets, which really aren't that much of a damn secret, or something along these lines. So were these accusers at your trial?
Yes. And that's part of that. That was part of my appeal was that originally all I had were those statements, and so therefore we were supposed to have trial with, you can't have non-Masonic folks at a trial according to our trial code, and so we prepared that way, and then all of a sudden they said, wait a minute, we're not going to meet at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're going to meet at 0700, and the accusers are going to be there in person. And I went, wait a minute, I don't have the opportunity to chat with my
Team.
team I don't have an opportunity to chat with my witnesses to fight against that. I mean, it was just odd.
Yeah, here's I guess here's the lesson. Life gives us lessons. Sometimes we don't know that they're lessons. And so this isn't the Jerry lesson. This is the lesson for the rest of the world. And I say this when I had employees and had businesses, I would always say this: everything's good until it's not. So when you're chummy or casual and all of that, it's fine, and you're horse playing or grab assing around and da 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 until somebody starts to feel some sort of a way, and then the stuff that has become normal, which shouldn't happen anyway, all of a sudden is a problem, right? And so
Right.
I say it this way: I've been a Mason for a real long time. I became a Shriner within weeks of becoming a Mason. And when folks come to my house or we go to Shrine events or this organization is a huggy organization. When folks come to my house, they get 3 steps in the door and my wife's coming over to give them a hug, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
we're also a bunch of smack talkers. At least our group, we hang crap on each other, and my spouse gets in the middle, she can hang crap with the rest of them. Here's the problem with all of that: it's innocent, and you say, oh, Byrd's wife would never do this, she'd never say that, till she does, right? So I guess the lesson is this: that conversation, I'm pushing the Facebook to the side, the conversation, the jokes, the jests, all of the stuff that say, I've had guys jokingly, probably not, say, oh my gosh, you must have drawn the short straw to get Byrd, right? And, to my hanging crap, right? But I can tell you this, that at any point, and we talked about this earlier, if your significant other or my significant other felt some sort of a way, Byrd was joking and it went too far, they should come around and say, hey, I know we've been joking. That's out of bounds. She's not cool with that. And I'd say, appreciate it. Sorry. And you just kind of know those boundaries. So again, not victim shaming. That is not a deal. I guess if it could go back in time, whether they hit you with charges or not, I would, if I was going to hit you with charges, you would never be blindsided. Anytime that I filed any sort of Masonic charges, nobody's blindsided. That is not a thing with me. It's not my style. I think it's chicken shit. That's just me. But I would have had the conversation. If you got a letter from the Grand Master that says don't talk to Byrd or his lady, you'd know exactly what it was about, right? And so that's just kind of where I'm at. And I think these are going to be my words, not yours. I think if you were to do anything all over again, the message is the one that triggered everything. That's what perpetuated, I'm saying that because of the timeline that was presented. That goes on, and then it works its way through. So I guess a lesson I would say, it'd be interesting what you would say after this, is the lesson I would say is, boys, Facebook is not your friend. Facebook, that stuff is forever. It's in writing, it's in video. It's like everything, every time I do a podcast, I'm like, this is forever. Somebody might feel some sort of a way about something sometime and try to pop me. That's fine. I mean, that would suck, but it doesn't stop podcast. That's a whole nother thing. But, and I think that there are a lot of things in hindsight you would probably do different. What's your takeaway?
Absolutely. You are 100% correct. First and foremost, I would have done more research into that picture than just to look at a picture and say, oh, geez, I'm going to comment. I would have opened up her profile, and I would have looked to see whether it was somebody that was involved in a previous conversation. I mean, that's absolutely the truth. I mean, I think that Facebook can be a really great tool,
Sure.
but you're absolutely correct. It can also be the death of you. You should, um, very first and foremost, have a have an understanding of your audience. And I did not have an understanding of my audience. It was
Yep.
just it was casual. It was just a random picture, and so therefore, and I didn't. Somebody told me, well, did you know that you were at an installation, a DMLA installation, between day one and day two? And I said, no. I said I had no clue. Well, you sat at the same table for refreshments, and I said, really? Because I didn't have any awareness that I had met or and quite honestly, this came out in the trial, which was kind of interesting. Um, I said, you know, this all really caught me by surprise because I said on Friday night of Grand Lodge, I said to Brother B, I said, it's my understanding that do you snowboard or do you ski? And I thought he said to me, oh, I'm a snowboarder. And I said, oh, well, you know, I have buddy passes at Powder Mountain. Why don't you let me know when you want to come up and give Powder Mountain a try? And in the trial, he said, I don't snowboard. Well, that wasn't what I remembered. And maybe it was a different person, which is something I'll get to in a second. Maybe I misunderstood who I was talking to. Maybe I wasn't really talking to Worshipful Brother B. Maybe I was talking to Worshipful Brother C. But I remember having a conversation, and I remember having a conversation with this individual about we used to be invited to his lodge's birthday party. And I said, you know, you guys quit inviting us to the birthday party, but I really, when I was in the Grand Lodge line, I really enjoyed that. That was always a great time. And I said, I have some personal friends of mine, very, very close friends of mine that are all members of that lodge. And so therefore, um, if I can come to the birthday party, I'd like to do that. And he said, well, I'll see what I can do. I said, okay. Well, and again, I said to him, I said, you know, and if you want to come up and snowboard at Powder Mountain, well, let me know and I'll get you a buddy pass and you can come up and snowboard at Powder Mountain. Now, later on in the trial, he said, I don't snowboard. Well, okay, maybe I talked to somebody different. I don't know. Um, and when I said, and I'll get to this, let me tell you what happened to me in October prior to all of this. I've already told you that I started out as a wingman on a officiating crew for football, high school football. I'm a big guy, and so therefore, very early on, I moved inside to the umpire position. Well, we've all seen the stuff go on a football field and see an umpire get taken out. Um, I quit officiating high school football, and our assigner called me 2 years later, and he said, "Jerry," he says, "I'm in trouble." And he said, I need officials. And I said, okay, Jeff. I said, if you need officials, I said, I'll come back, but I will not come back as an umpire because I've been run over a couple of times. I'm not the most mobile guy in the world.
Sure.
I said, so I will come back. He said, okay. He says, what I'll do is he says, I'll make you a referee. Get the magic white hat and
Right.
you don't have to worry about dodging linemen and dodging running backs and all of that kind of stuff. And so I came back as a high school football official at the referee position. But I was doing a JV football game in October, and because it was JV, I let myself get sucked in a little bit. And as I got sucked in a little bit, the next thing I know, well, these are the things that I do not remember. I do not remember getting hit. I do not remember getting run over. I do not remember us finishing the game. And apparently we did not, because they had a little delay with my situation. They had multiple trainers talking to me, and I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I know about percussion or concussion protocol. I've been in the National Ski Patrol for 50 years. I know all about that. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." We did not finish the game. There was lightning in the area, and so we can't shut the game down. I do not remember walking to my car. I do not remember putting my gear in the car. I do not remember driving home. The first thing that I remember was walking in my garage door, between my house and my garage, and I walked in and I went, "Oh shit! Wow, my head is just spinning." I walked over, and I'm a live alone guy, and so I walked over and I sat down on the couch, and immediately I went to sleep. Not something you're supposed to do according to concussion protocol. Yep. But they've changed that. They've changed that. That's now an okay thing, because you're giving the brain an opportunity to
rest,
to settle down.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, probably a couple of hours later, I picked up my phone and I called my umpire and I said, "Dude, what happened?" He says, "Let me tell you what." He says, "You were knocked down, knocked out. Concussion, gone. You were gone." I says, "Oh, geez." Well, for the entire week after that, I continued to go to work. As a matter of fact, I worked a varsity game the Friday night. And I worked Little League on Saturday. But for a week, I was just foggy.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if I walked into a room full of individuals, I may or may not have recognized what I say, who's who in Disneyland.
Yeah.
I may not have if I had been introduced to this person, I may not have recognized it.
Yeah.
But of course everybody says, "Oh yeah, BS, that's just an excuse." Well, it wasn't an excuse. It was something that physically, factually happened to me.
Right.
Now, is what it is. So
let me ask you this: how long is your expulsion? Are there years tied to it, or is it forever?
Forever.
Well, Jerry, I know this was a painful rehashing of things going on. I think it's a story that Masons need to hear, not for the expulsion, but for how things can go from one situation to another in a blink of an eye. And we just need to make sure that we're always governing ourselves accordingly. So, Jerry, I appreciate you taking the time and coming on the Old Fashioned Masonic podcast. Cheers.
Cheers.
Based on the evidence that we had presented before us, looking at the letters from the Grand Lodge, hearing Jerry talk, there were some things obviously that should have been done differently. The craft, after the appeal process, voted overwhelmingly to expel. Based on the information, our crew has reviewed, the videos and the evidence, and it's always tough to say, but it's probably at this time we would agree with the decision of the Grand Lodge. Not that they need our accolades, and just a tough time. And I think there's a lot of things that the brothers could have done differently leading into it. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of take ownership for what was said or done. And it's the decision was probably sound.